Well, we're gonna get started. My name's Sean Friedman. For those in attendance and those, I don't know where the camera's at in here, so I don't know where I'm looking. But I am the Vice President of Sales for One Team Insurance and Customer First Insurance, which provides the errors and omissions protection for your agency, your brokerage. So one of the things is that it's the largest expense of the brokerage on an insurance-wise a year. And really, it's your largest exposure as a 1099 independent contractor. And how do you protect what you're growing, your well, and as well as your reputation? Because an E&O claim can be just that. It damages your wallet and it damages your reputation, both as an individual realtor and as a brokerage. So obviously, claims are where we're trying to reduce. So part of that is Vicki, who is your broker of record, who's here, and I have discussed, how to best mitigate claims. How do we handle when they come up? What's the first thing you do? And so we invited Rebecca, who's here from Travelers Insurance, who is the one who determines how much you guys pay for insurance, and also let you, which was a huge reduction from the last company. So thank you, Rebecca. And she helped organize here today with Joe, who came up here from Maryland, to educate us on how to best protect ourselves, what to do in case of a claim, questions you guys may have, and anything in between. So I'm going to kick it off. Vicki, you have a few words for the team before? Then I'm going to get rid of the screen here so that everyone can see.
As someone who's part of logistics all day, every day, I can't begin to tell you. A little common sense goes a million miles. And I say this respectfully, common sense seems to have gone out of people's minds. I don't know where to begin with that, but if the hair on the back of your neck stands up because something is haunting you, a comment a client made, a comment another agent made, you do some homework and something doesn't seem right. It's not going to be right. Pick up the phone and call me. Say, I'm feeling a little funny about this. I'm in the basement. I see the water line, yet the seller's property disclosure states they never had a water issue. You as an agent have to learn to open your mouth and stop running with your tail between your legs. These Joe Public will make an ass out of you in a heartbeat because they think they can. I'm at a listing many years ago and I see the water line. And I say to the owner, do you ever get water in here when it rains really hard or something? Keep in mind, the water heater is up on a biscuit, the heater's up on a biscuit, all the boxes are up on pallets. And now, so that's so ironic. There's this perfect line that runs the whole perimeter of the property. How does that happen? Oh, I don't know. So I look behind because I know the neighborhood, the heater. And there's a vertical crack 5 feet long behind the heater in the poured concrete, where water often comes in from. You can see the dirt, it kind of leaves a mark. You were just as responsible as that seller not disclosing the deficiency. In a court of law, your dupa is dragged in with everybody else because you saw it. Did you not, Vicki Carey? As I'm sitting next to the judge, I've been in that chair next to the judge. You need to say, Mrs. Jones, I'm sorry. Unless this is disclosed on the seller's property disclosure, I am not the agent for you. And that takes balls to do that because that's money out of your pocket. The money out of your pocket on that transaction will triple in your deductibles. You've got to learn to say no. And that's it for me.
Can I take out a really with me? Anyway, good afternoon, everybody. So I don't know how to follow up on that. I'm actually a little bit intimidated. I've got some even more horror stories that actually happen and what do they cost, because that's what it comes down to. So my name is Joe Jones, very plain, very simple, and actually quite boring. And actually, all those alphabets behind my names, actually there's more. I'm also an architect, so usually there's an AIA behind there. So my father used to ask me, are you gonna decide what to do when you grow up? So, but anyway, but I wanted, before we get into the meat of the stuff, a couple things I just want to say, kind of deal. This is a conversation between you and I. This is not a presentation, this is not a lecture. Even for those joining remotely, I want you to ask me questions. I want you all to talk to each other and sort of stuff. And I'm going to ask you all many questions. And because I went to law school and they believe in the Socratic method, in the first week of law school, I was the last person in the class one day, and the professors grilled me the entire time. So you, sir, with the light blue shirt in the back, yes, you're going to get lots of questions from me today. This is a penalty for being the last one, and your friend here is grateful because he was last for a while, and these two ladies here really scurried in. But you're going to get a lot of questions from me.
Also, it makes a decision if the travelers next year. So just saying.
And so the second week of class, I actually wore a very, very bright colored shirt, and the professor grilled me at the time. No one is really jumping at me, but I gotta give this lady a pass. She's got the brightest color, but she was in here early. She took her seat, but I'm sorry, because you were one of the 4 last ones in, yes, you're gonna get questions from me, but every question is important. No question is irrelevant. And so I want you to ask me questions. This really is a conversation between you and I. A little bit more about me, and then I'll tie it into why today's topic is so important, is that, there you go. So I am actually a rower. You all here in Philadelphia probably have seen this quite a bit. And for those of you who are not familiar with this crazy, silly sport, I'm trying to figure out where to click. There it is. Basically, you sit in a very, very small boat and you row backwards. You don't see where you're going. And I think it was 2019. I was up in Upper Marion on the upper school pool doing a race. And I wasn't familiar with the course, had never done it before. And 500 meters before I get to the finish line, this happened. I got stuck underneath some tree branches. I got stuck there for 5 minutes. And to add insult to injury, a couple days after the race, a friend of mine sent me an email with a link saying, you need to look at this. And basically all those pictures were being posted by Row 2K, which is arguably the largest rowing site in the world for rowers. So they have pictures of me sitting there stuck underneath the tree. There it is. Stuck underneath the tree. It actually made Row 2K's top 5 photos of the year, end of the year. So, and really, all of that was embarrassing and so forth. So, but when I finally got myself untangled, I was in the middle of a high school girls race. And so when I crossed the finish line, the official looked at me and said, you don't look like a high school girl. I cursed enough that day qualified for a Quentin Tarantino movie. But the reason that this is important, so you feel comfortable, I'm human, I make mistakes kind of stuff. But I did not do a good job of managing this. I did not take the time to understand the course, to talk to people and all this other sort of stuff. Rowing backwards is a hazard in onto itself. And because of that, I suffered a great deal of humiliation, embarrassment. They cost me any money, thank God, no damage, no physical harm, but it could have been far worse. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to show you a lot of claim examples of things that your peers, other firms have done, other realtors have done, and you're going, oh my God, why would they do that? Well, they did it, and it could easily happen to you. So as Vicki said in the beginning, you need to be aware of these things, and I know you're client-centered, you want to serve your client well, all these other sort of things, but you have to use good professional judgment not to make something a really bad situation that results in a claim. So, what are we going to talk about today? I just want to give you a quick little lesson about legal liability. I'm not going to drag you through a lot of lawyer stuff, but you have to understand what is the law going to look for as what you've done or you failed to do that may make you legally liable when someone has suffered damages. And then we're going to look at some things that what can go wrong. We'll look at what does a professional liability claim cost, and then we'll talk about some risk management practices. And you know, a lot of these, you're going to say, I know that, I do that, I do that. But again, at a moment, as Vicki said, you may just kind of like, in this one situation, I don't need to do this because it'll be okay, but it can come back to haunt you. And then I'll show you some risk management resources that are available to you as a traveler's insured, and then Q&A at the end, Q&A throughout the whole process. So, in the beginning here, so legal liability exists when there are 4 elements. There's a duty, you breach that duty, that breach caused damages to some other party, maybe your client, maybe somebody else. maybe you're the adjoining property. So you have to understand, in order for a court to find you legally liable for something that you've done or something that you failed to do, it must show duty, it must show breach causing damages. And the duty is really the gatekeeper here. It is the standard of care. It is what other professionals would have done. Oh, the last person in the room. So you're off the hook there. Yes, you're off the hook today. Oh, even another. So we're gonna roll it in. But your peers, as Vicky said, are really the ones who are going to do a lot in establishing each of you the applicable standard of care. Because the law is going to look for you to act as others would have acted in the same or similar set of circumstances. But also the courts are going to look to other sources. And one of the other sources they primarily look to are the professional societies. And something has happened recently that seems to be shaking up a whole bunch of realtors that could affect your way you've been practicing and whether or not you met the applicable standards of the profession. Anybody want to tell me what that is?
Well, the NAR settlement.
The NAR settlement. And what will the NAR settlement mean to your business?
No.
No, nothing.
You're doing it right.
That's good.
I feel like people are looking at it wrong.
Right.
It is literally all of us getting slapped on the hand because certain individuals, probably a large number of us, were not explaining our actual duties and our liabilities and why we have to do certain things. We were not getting proper documentation done at the proper time.
Yep.
So we've been getting away with this for decades, and then all of a sudden they were like, enough. The wrong people at the right time got us jacked up. So now we are having to do what we should have been doing the whole time. However, if you're newer to real estate, you're thinking, oh my gosh, we're being punished and this sucks and da 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 da, but it was supposed to be happening. So.
Yeah, and so when I talk to attorneys, when I talk to other real estate agencies, the larger firms are like, okay, no big deal. The smaller firms are really seem to be freaking out. And it really is. So if something starts going wrong, if someone says you have violated, the settlement agreement kind of stuff, they're going to look to your peers. They're going to look to the what NAR says the settlement, and they're going to judge you. Did you meet the requirement of having a buyer's agreement, prior to showing property, and all these other sort of things that are really important. So NAR has actually done some great educational tools. So I urge you all to look at that and understand it. But the other thing that you need to recognize is that the standard of care, whether it's your peers or the NAR, it evolves over time. So if what you were doing 20 years ago may not be the standard of your profession right now. And that is why you should talk to your peers, see what your peers are doing. Look at what NAR is publishing and putting out, because those are the standards that the courts are going to hold you to. Any questions about that? You had that frown on your face, like, oh my God, no. Okay. So in this particular situation, the seller was retained by a real estate agent to sell his house. The seller advised the agent that he would not entertain any contingencies whatsoever. He's told him, I'm not going to contain any contingencies. 2 months later, the agent received an offer that was well below the seller's asking price, but did not contain any contingency. The seller accepted the offer and the parties executed an agreement for sale. Days later, a prospective buyer submitted another offer to the agent above the seller's asking price, but it contained numerous contingencies. The seller and the buyer who made the original offer of the product were closing the sale. So, was he obligated, the seller obligated to advise of the other offer?
No.
Okay.
Your state indicates. Now in Pennsylvania, it says you do not.
You do not?
But let me see. That conversation goes something like this. Mr. Seller.
Yes.
The law states I am not obligated to tell you another offer landed on my desk.
Yes.
In my inbox.
Yes.
But I'm telling you, I have one.
Yes.
Here it is. If you choose to move forward with this offer that you consider better, you must hire the very best real estate attorney in Philadelphia.
And I agree. I think you should go ahead and disclose all offers to your client, make them fully informed of the various ramifications, and then they make an informed decision as to how they want to proceed. But it's one of those things that's going to get actually worse here on this. So thank you, sir. So, but I totally agree. I think we yes.
I have a question about I guess maybe it was I missed the time of it. Like if when you say they accepted the original offer, that was lower, but no contingencies.
Right.
Does that mean they actually signed on it? Okay, so they were aware of it.
They were aware of
They
it.
had to sign it.
They were proceeding forward, and then they were gonna go on to close it. So there was still an open window here, so he
Gotcha.
could have said, you know, okay, we're gonna go in this, but they hadn't proceeded as far as what the claims were. They hadn't proceeded to the point where they could not have backed up. You know, that kind of stuff.
I agree with you. I just disclose even the ones that are gonna be pissed off.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if it was signed off, is how and that's a funny perception.
Yeah.
I thought it was executed.
Me too.
Yeah, but even if it executed, I think that's where you have that conversation. You make sure you fully disclose it, you know, all the kind of stuff. You're representing your client here, and you tell them, you accepted this other one, but now I've got another one. And then, you know, all these ramifications if they choose to proceed going forward. So the point is that you don't make that decision for your client. You have your client make that decision. You're just informing them of what you have received, and then they can decide how to proceed forward. Yeah.
Yeah, I do have a question.
Sure.
So, as for the reply, sometimes the reply is a verbal no, right? We don't have like tracking evidence. How, I mean, is that sufficient, right?
A
Like
verbal no.
Yeah. So
You
the,
know the answer to that.
so
You know the answer to that.
Not in a state, right? Like I don't know.
Well, then you would, if it was I would then follow up that
Yes.
verbal no with
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Reviewing our last
Yeah.
conversation.
Right.
I indicated, got an offer for 135 with 5 contingencies. You said to me, absolutely not. Just reaffirming.
Right. And what else, what other form of communication should you also follow up with in more formal sort of stuff? We use them all the time. Text messages.
Yeah.
Because they go away. The whole point is you need some sort of documentation of that conversation and how your client told you to proceed. And we've all gotten very lax about that. We're very busy. You're in the car and they call you up, say no, or whatever kind of stuff. And you're off doing something else. You've got to be disciplined when you get back to your office to follow up with that. Hold on a minute, Sean. And then same thing with text messages, because that text message is going to be gone and deleted or whatever, and it's not going to be easily retrievable as an email.
Yeah.
So that's something to come up with. You know, I'm the one that gets all the lawsuits that come in. I read them, like one that's worded from a different brokerage, and the first thing they ask for is all the documentation, right? And there's a reason why you should use a professional email, whether it's the KW one provided to you or a email separate from your personal, because all that stuff now is discoverable by an attorney, including your cell phone. So separate apps, separate things, like there's better risk management, and I'm sure we can get into that later in another session, but it is key not to commingle your businesses, right? Especially if you're an LLC. There's a reason they are LLC.
That's right.
Right? Commingling your money. Like there are so many rules and regulations, but using one email address for your business that's strictly professional, not at Gmail, right? At KW or at your team name or whatever that is. Text messages that go to a special line that are not considered part of your normal phone line, so that they're not, you can't subpoena. Remember Tom Brady, right?
Yeah.
Right? All this stuff happens for a reason. This happens every single day. They want every bit of information, and they'll find something in there that's going to make you culpable or liable.
Travelers, Joe Jones. I do not mix the two at all. You know, and if you have the only one I read, have a separate email address for those official, you know, communications with your client. But the point is, you knew the answer. They told you no, but you need to follow up. And it is important to follow up to confirm this is what we discussed today. This is what I told you, if anything, and this is how you told me to proceed or how you want me to proceed.
I'm just referring to the height of the market. What I used to do is I used to put Excel sheet where I present all the offers, proceed multiple offers in the property.
Yeah.
And you know, okay, well, this, and at the end he will select that, but it was just basically a conversation at that point. So it's I was
So if you're on an Excel sheet and you've got what you said, no, yes, or even know the why, then just share that with him too.
Okay.
So, you know, that kind of stuff, so confirming,
I'm
year 10
well,
offers,
okay.
and confirm, so we got another late person, that's good. So what happened actually is, 6 months later, I don't know why it took so long, the seller learned about the above asking price. He then filed suit against the agent, alleging breach of fiduciary duty, and failed to advise him on the above asking price. So you need to remember, you have a fiduciary obligation to your client. You're always going to put your client's interest above everything else. So I'm on I'm on the side of being maybe overly cautious because I'm a risk manager. So I'm telling them everything. I'm telling them everything. Telling them everything kind of stuff because go ahead, Vicki.
Keeping in mind, buyers are liars and sellers are worse. The instructions in this scenario were given to the agent from the seller
Yep.
at that moment of time.
Exactly.
As 3 months pass, that moment of time has changed. Their perception, their thought process, the half-loaded conversation they had with their brother-in-law at the end of the bar, everything changes. So that's why it's so imperative for you to defend yourself. Think of yourself as somebody trying to interrogate me. How do I defend myself? Get that barrier around you. Protect yourself.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and you're absolutely right. Just because a seller put these sort of restrictions in the beginnings, the next month it could all change. So basically, you say, I know you said you didn't want to see any vacancies, but here's one anyway. Whether it's above or asking, let them make that informed decision. But one of the things you need to always remember is that you do have a fiduciary obligation to your client. Your client is relying upon you as a professional. You have skill and knowledge they do not have, but they want and need. And so you always have to put their interest above yours. The courts does not like you when you breach your fiduciary obligations to your client. So it's very important. So, and you put the benefiting party above, any convenience of yours. So it's very important that you remember that you have a fiduciary obligation to your clients. So what happened? The seller argued that he was entitled to recover the difference between the above asking price and the purchase price, his costs, and attorney's fees. And it can add up very, very quickly. All because, I'm sure the agent had the best of intentions of saying, I don't want to bombard my client with a lot of paperwork. They told me they didn't want to know about this stuff. They got an offer that's below asking price with all these other sort of stuff. I don't want to burden them. I'm sure the agent had the best of intentions. But now look what they have to pay the difference between the purchase price and what the other offer was, his cost, and also his attorney's fees. And it can add up very, very quickly. Any questions about that before we move on? So, a couple things. So when we looked at, and this is through 2020, when we looked at the average cost of a claim in the travelers program, and I will preface this right now, this is all before the shutdown, so it's all before inflation really started to hit. So all of these numbers are going to be higher if you adjust it for today's dollars. So, but the average cost was $35K. The average of the top 25% was $75K. 10%, $130K. We had 3 claims to close over $500,000, and then we had the largest. We had one that was over $1 million. And I'm sure who said what was that? What was that, Brad? And I'm sure a lot of real estate agents go, okay, fine. So maybe it's going to be $20K at most kind of thing. But depending on the property and the situation and so forth and so on, it can really add up to a lot of money. Don't frown on it. It's okay. It's okay. That's why I'm here. That's right. But this is real, folks. I don't make these numbers up. And so you understand, this is why you have professional liability coverage. That's why you work with Sean. Sean works with Rebecca, because could you afford to pay to settle? No. You don't want it to happen, period. But you remember, you don't want this to ever have to be paid out. So it's very important, again, that you remember these sort of things that we're going to be talking about today, because you want to avoid this situation where you're paying any kind of money. And this does not count the time that you're going to have to spend with your defense attorney going through your testimony and all this other sort of stuff. So you're not out there selling properties or representing your client on any of that stuff. So it's not only the damages you cost, but it's the lost time that you're losing from your firm. You shocked by this?
No.
No?
I have a pile on this side. I'm not shocked.
Not shocked. Yes,
What?
Miss. Go ahead.
So did that person actually win? Seller won that?
I'm trying to think. My guess.
Sorry, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did. Because again, I think the agent who really, and if you have a question remotely, just unmute yourself and ask it. But I'm sure the agent really had the best of intentions.
Yeah.
But he successfully argued, you were not really representing my interests. At the very least, you should have told me and literally said, I've got another offer here. It's got contingencies, but it's a lot more money. And let them make the informed decision about how they want to proceed.
So
So,
what if he had documentation that, like, say, for example, this was an email, like you said, where the seller said, I'm working with the agent saying, I'm just confirming our conversation where you mentioned that you do not want to put any offers with any contingency. If he had that email, would the outcome have been different?
I don't think
Who
so.
knows?
Who knows, but I don't think so. I think the whole thing that's pressed on is that even though he said, I don't want to see any offers with contingencies, and they may have an email that do it, they're gonna put a higher, level of obligation on you as a professional to still say, to still say, you may change your mind. Look, this has got a lot more money that they're offering here, but it's got some contingencies, so can you live with these contingencies, given that you're gonna make a lot more money? The court is going to look at you as a professional, and they're gonna expect you to help your client understand, because, Joe Jones I never sold a house before, I don't care, kind of stuff. They're looking for you to help guide me through the process and help me make an informed decision. That's really what it comes down to. You're not making the decision for them, but helping them make it informed. And after they say, no, I just don't want to deal with these contingencies. That's fine. They made the decision. Yes.
I think that, so for example, you have the Esquire after your name, and what it takes to become a professional licensed attorney is exorbitantly more effort and time and work than it is to be a real estate agent. And I think that the double-edged sword of getting a real estate license is we are still held by the law, by courts, to the same level of professionalism and standards that an attorney would be, that a doctor would be. But because our bar to be a real estate agent is so damn low,
Right.
it gets lost in the translation. So even a lot of people that get their real estate license that is so easy to obtain do not think of themselves at this level of professionalism.
Good.
But that's what needs to be said sometimes. Like, even though it was a lot easier for us to get our professional designation, does not mean we get it easy in court. You are still expected to behave and to conduct yourself in the same manner as a surgeon, as a lawyer, which is also why we got in trouble with NAR, because again, we didn't think we needed to have a conversation about our compensation as professionals. So it's up to us. Like, just because every state makes it so easy to become a real estate agent, don't get tripped up in thinking that you're gonna get let off easy also. We don't get that. So it might be easier to get that designation and start making money, but you're not gonna get let off easy in court just because of that. Like, you have to hold yourself to that professional standard.
I need to take both of you on with it. I really do. But you're right. The first two bullet points here really sum it up. You've got a great deal of control over this process, and you have knowledge and expertise that your client does not. So whether it's a doctor, accountant, or whatever kind of stuff, you have a great deal of control over a process that the average public does not have. Even though it may be easier to get a real estate license as opposed to getting a member of the bar or even a design professional, you still have a lot of control and expertise that your client is really relying on. That's really the crust of it right there. Was there a question remotely?
We have a question to the chat.
Okay.
With E&O coverage, does the agent incur any of the financial liability in these settlements? If not, does the broker ever come after the agent?
So in our brokerage, it's the first 25,000 that the brokerage takes on, the agent responsible for the
There you go.
So
Go ahead.
just want to put that on the thing. The first 5,000 before anything gets paid comes from the agent or the team or however that structure is. The next 20,000 comes from the brokerage. What needs to be understood is that a lot of that can be avoided sooner Vicky and I know about a claim, because of that. If you go back to that claims frequency and the amounts, Joe.
Yeah, the average is 35,000.
The 35,000 part.
Never be.
But if you look at the top, damages, defense, expenses.
Right.
Damages is the smallest component to what we handle in insurance. It's expenses and defense. Lawyers love to bill, right? That's what they get paid on, billable hours, and they don't stop. And they automatically, as soon as there's a claim that comes in and it says they're suing you for $250,000, boom, they put $250,000 as an occurrence as a reserve that they may have to pay out. That sits there. We don't want those because then Rebecca has to say, there's a $250,000 thing, we're gonna have to raise the rates to make sure we can recoup that. So the idea is the sooner we know about it, the sooner we can mitigate it, the sooner we can figure out if it's in-house counsel or travelers counsel that needs to go after people. Because we had one that someone waited too long to tell us and they got a judgment and it only cost $5,000 and guess what? It came only out of the, and we could have got it dismissed because they had nothing to do with it, but because they sat on their hands, it cost them $5,000.
The fear of the unknown cannot exist. If you have fear of anything, you gotta call me. I don't care what it is. I had an agent a couple of weeks ago, God bless him, called me and said, Vic, I don't feel good about this. Somebody tell me what happened. He did. I said, now go back to your computer. It's fresh in your mind. I need chronological order of everything that happened from the first phone call down to today. God bless this guy. He put it all in order. I printed it out. It's in my file. It says maybe someday. And I have it. Maybe someday I'm going to refer to this. But while it's fresh in their mind, I get everybody chronological order. Tell me everything that happened in great detail.
Yeah.
Support your findings. I love it. Copies of text, an email that's attached. This is ridiculous. We love it.
Yeah, and attorneys, they want to keep their fence. If you got good records,
Yeah.
that really helps a lot. But if they got to go through a bunch of like, things, and especially like, well, we told them, but I don't have any records of what we told them kind of stuff, that just adds to the cost of the defense. It really does. So if you have good records, good documents, and you just hand it to them, they're off and running. And you're just going to save a lot for the defense. So what happened here, the agent trying to defend himself saying, well, she verbally advised the seller of the other offer kind of deal, but when they looked through her emails, they couldn't find it, and so forth and so on. So, you've got to make sure if you're verbally telling somebody something, you've got to follow up with the email and make sure you read that email and what happened to me, make sure you send it. Because I had somebody the other day said, literally, it was Christine Jones, a question I asked her about NAR, and it took her 2 weeks. She said, oh, I thought I sent this to you 2 weeks ago. I just submitted it. So yes, easy, simple mistake that any of us can make, but it is very important that you dot your I's and cross your T's. So important here, client communication. Your client, as Vicki said, may change their mind. So because they told you X on the first day, a week later, a month later, 6 months later, especially if you've got no offers, they may change your mind, and that's a conversation you need to have with them. Make sure you timely convey all offers. Talk to them about, what you have received and document your communications and so forth and so on. That becomes so important to your defense because if they have really good documentation, she said, I verbally told you about the other offer, but you didn't have a backing documentation. So when you made that allegation, you hold it up and say, yes, it is. And you even email back to me a smiley face or a frowning face or whatever kind of stuff. You have that communication. Any more questions about that before I depress you even more? Okay. So for claims alleging failure to convey offer acceptance, we're going to drill down a little bit more specific here. The average was $18,000. The average of the top 25% was $24,000, and the average of the top 10% is $117,000. This actually says to me that this is it happens, but it doesn't happen that often. And if it does happen, they got good documentation to get themselves out because the numbers I would expect to be a little higher, but that says to me people are doing it. But you need to remember it does happen. And so you need to have that communication with your client ongoing throughout the whole process and ask them again. You said no contingency. We have not received an offer in a month that didn't have contingency. Do you want to stick to that? So you're the professional. They're relying upon your advice, but your knowledge and expertise to help them make an informed decision.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
In every transaction, somebody has to be in charge. How about it be the real? How about you take control of the situation? Having objections, there's nothing wrong with a seller or a buyer having objections. For you, though, it's the ability to address the objection and solidify your point of professionalism, why we're going to do it this way.
Right.
If anyone here is a parent, a commanding statement goes a long way. Try it. No, that's not how we're gonna do this. And let me tell you why we're not gonna do it that way. This scenario could happen. That scenario could happen. In my experience, good statements, in my experience, just throwing it out.
And it's one of those things your client needs to understand that it's not just you that could have liability, they could have liability too, especially with non-disclosures and things like that. So always couch it that not only, we need to do this because of, I don't want to get in trouble, but they could get in trouble as well. So that is an important thing to always convey to your clients as well. So in this next situation, a licensed contractor purchased a house built in 1952 for the purpose of flipping it. So the contractor renovated the original over 600 square foot structure, including replacing outdated plumbing, replaced the furnace, but did not change the ductwork. And then he built a 2,000 square foot addition surrounding the original structure and put a new roof over the whole thing.
Where's Mark?
Whoever's got the phone, not you. Thank you. There you go. I don't know where Mark is, so anyway. So the contractor hired a listing agent. The contractor told the agent about the renovations. Let's stop there. Any problems with that? What else should you have done? What else would have been really good to have?
Yeah.
The disclosures, and there's room on there.
Write it down. You told me what you've done. I want you, contractor, on your letterhead to write down everything that you just told me on your letterhead of what you have done to this property. Because that way you can rely upon, not just he told you this, but I want you to write it down. And usually when you write stuff down, you remember more, you put more detail, which is good. And then on their letterhead, so you can say, this is what I got from the guy that's hired me to list this property. So he said he also spent over $40,000 on concrete. When the agent walked the property, he took photos, but did not go down into the basement area. Vicki, what do you think about that?
I actually had a conversation driving in today with an agent from another state on a commercial property.
Okay.
And I asked her some very simple questions because in Bright, there was nothing under remarks. And I couldn't get an answer. I said, does it have gas? Because it didn't indicate the heating system. Yeah. I think it does. You think it does, I said. It doesn't have a bathroom. It doesn't have a bathroom. How do you know that? Well, they have a porta potty. I said, did you actually walk through this property? Was exactly what I said to her today. How can you not know what is in it and not in it? Yes, of course. I'm in there multiple times. I'm like, my God, are your eyes?
So this agent didn't walk the property. Now we're going to come down to the standard of care. Can anyone here think of a reason why the agent would not walk down into the basement?
Lazy.
Well, I fell to the floor of a house in Kensington, and what I landed on was scary. So
I'm sure.
sometimes,
So and when I hear that, so but then the next question that in this particular situation, a newly renovated house, would it have been reasonable for the agent to fear something like that? That's the question. Exactly. And then even if you did, what do?
You still go down.
Or
you get a buddy.
you get a buddy. You get a buddy. Because is it important? Is it important to go down there?
Yes, it is.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry, I just need to ask something. So, because I'm in both sides of the fence here, right? I'm the contractor and the.
Okay.
So, if I hire somebody to list my property.
Who are you? A seller or a contractor?
He's a contractor. He's not. Oh, okay.
He's the
I'm the phone guy.
Keep one. You can't be.
All right, so then I'm the contractor.
You're the contractor.
Right, that's right.
Okay.
We're the same, because I'm the contractor. So, is the responsibility of my agent now, he signed me all the paperwork, I sign it. Normally, I will see, and I'm not saying I'm doing this, but
Right.
normally I see a lot of people, just a lot of contractors signing the self-disclosure as I don't live there, right? Like I
Oh,
never.
Don't
Please,
get me started.
please.
I'm just being real.
I know you're being real.
I'm just being real.
I know you're being real.
So it's not my agent So it will be the standard of care that my agent now has to go to that property, tour it and go to the basement?
Absolutely.
Well, we do, but we can't fill the disclosure out.
You can't do that. So, but I
If
still,
your house-
yeah, I still, especially when you say I don't live there.
That
And
is
even if
something
you
you
can fill it up, I think me, I'm not a real estate agent. I still want to just, okay, fine. Because you're advising your client, and your client may think this is not important to disclose. But you as a real estate agent know, yes, this is important to disclose. So I think it's always prudent for real estate agents, as long as it's practical and safe and all that, you need to put your own eyes on these things.
Yeah, I believe so too.
Yeah, okay. Well, I kind of felt like came from up high, like God is talking. I got a little nervous there. But anyway, but I just think, yes, it seems like a small thing, but again, your client is relying upon you. You're a contractor. You don't know what it is to sell or what may be a
But
problem.
at the same time, I'm gonna jump at the other side as a real estate agent, right? Like, if he's telling me that, right, like, am I going to?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
in my opinion, yes. So yes, Sean?
So one of the things to keep in mind is, and it's different in the city, like when I bought my house in the suburbs, it came with the roof cert that was on the house. It came with the permits that were pulled for everything. Like in the city now, you're supposed to pull permits. I know it doesn't happen, but like when we're doing remodels and guts, there has to be permits. Right? So ask them for the permits. Put it in the seller's disclosure. It protects you that much more if it's there. If they're doing the work properly, it's not an issue. If not, then you have to put no permits were pulled because they could be responsible on inspection for the tax increase.
No, as an agent, I actually decided to
Possible,
decide.
if they ran the permits.
Right.
So you will know ahead.
So in Pennsylvania, regardless if you own a property and you never stepped into it, does not exempt you as a seller from filling out
Yep.
in the word of entirety the seller's property disclosure statement.
Right.
It happened to me years ago. I was selling a home to my niece. I asked for the seller's disclosure. Boom, it's in my email, completely empty, just with a signature on the bottom. None of it as an executor or executrix, POA, any of that. It was the seller. So I called the listing agent, thank you very much, but it's empty, it's blank. He goes, oh yeah, it was investment. He never even stepped in. I said, well, sir, I'm sorry, but that doesn't apply. Now, keep in mind, I'm just a real estate agent telling another real estate agent, dude, that don't work. It dawned on me, because I could tell the man had no backbone. And I said, if I gave you the Pennsylvania law regarding seller's disclosure, could that help your case in getting this filled out? Because you have the law. I said, I did. I sent it over. 3 hours later, in my email was a completely filled out seller's property disclosure statement. Remember, agents, as the listing agent, you are just as responsible as that seller in regards to disclosure.
And don't let your client, especially if a problem, become your problem.
Oh, and they will.
Yeah, exactly. They will when they're coming. So yes, I understand they live across the country. Their parents live in this house. They haven't visited them, whatever. It's a bad relationship. I'm sorry. You're the seller. You need to come here. You need to go through or hire your own agent, not real estate agent, but somebody who can do this on your behalf. But don't let your client, especially a seller's problem, become your problem. I know your client, focus, you want to do well for your client, all these other sort of things, but don't let their problem become your problem.
That's great.
I have a really important question, and I'm glad that powers of fear in the room, so
Oh my
it's
God.
valid answer. I'm taking advantage right now. So, and Vicky and David and also our insurance guy, you, because you're an attorney, I'm taking full advantage of this. So I'm a pro co-chair, which I have a lot of newly licensed agents. I'm the team leader, and my team is all on Zoom right now. I'm really proud of them for showing up, but most of them are at work too. So,
Yeah.
But this happens almost daily, and I have to call Vicky a lot and remind myself that I'm not the crazy one. Sean can't be what he can. So this is what happens. So this is what happens. My agents out here showing properties, their client falls in love with something, they're trying to prep their offer, they send me their docs to review, and I'm like, where's the seller's disclosures? Oh, let me go look on Bright. Oh, they're not on Bright. oh, the listing agent's not answering the phone, oh, this, oh, that, and I'm like, twofold question. One, is it all right, because this is what is happening, us to submit an offer and in the big box at the bottom say, offer is contingent on review, receipt, and acceptance of seller's disclosures? Because if they get jammed up, if they don't do that, or we have a lot of agents who like to tell my new agents, I've been real estate longer than online, you don't need that. I'm like, how do we not need disclosures? Anyways, that is what is happening. Like, whether that's right or wrong, I know that's what's happening right now. So if that is not okay, are we supposed to tell our clients, I'm sorry, we can't put an offer in on this house because the listing agent sucks and won't give us money?
So, you know,
Like-
that's gonna be very jurisdictional specific. I mean, I think if you did it, having that additional language about contingency and so forth and so on. But my thing is you're losing bargaining power as you start to let things
Oh,
go.
1,000.
So you just basically say to the seller's agent, look, we're not going to move forward until we get everything that we need. And then we can move forward. We got a buyer who's anxious and wants to do it and interested and so forth and so on. But I can't proceed forward in any form or fashion until we get it. That puts the heat on them. If you go ahead and do it and then give them that thing with the language you've described, it takes a little bit of the pressure off. And then they may haphazardly do something and so forth and so on.
We're fighting two things. One, the listing agents that will not give you the disclosures or upload them, don't give a shit because they're getting multiple offers. And there's so many other agents who will submit it without even a contingency. They think that if they could care less about seller's disclosures, which is wild to me, because I feel like you're setting yourself up for whatever. But that is what's actually, that's reality, right? That's happening.
So the parents will understand. I'm the youngest of 9. And everybody's done it. Just because your brother did it, do you want to do it?
Oh, no, I agree. No, that's why I at least have them put language in, because I understand.
That would be the minimum. I still would like pull up, and if the other agents want to go ahead and do that kind of stuff and take on that risk, that liability, well, you know, just because Tommy jumped from the stable over to the feed house doesn't mean that you need to jump from the stable over to the
It's a
feed
tough
house.
position, because I have new agents too that are hungry, that are excited, and they don't want to disappoint their client. And the clients are crazy. Like, they're okay with the offers in without being
But
disclosed.
the client is going to say it hurts them too.
Oh, yeah.
It hurts them too. So, you know, but again, it's one of those things that, I mean, if you're going to do it, you're doing the right thing.
Well, I'm not for the powers to be what they want me to do. If you want us to be hard nosed and not put the offer in, can we use the language? Sean? Somebody?
I would say, yes, use the language.
Right.
It is something.
Better
I
than
used
nothing.
to use a very similar run, but I had a caveat that the execution date was not
Okay,
until written approval from the buyer that
okay.
they had reviewed, accepted the information in the seller's disclosure.
So
Now, the other thing is,
A defined time to all of this.
I'll be a point of sale that you have to acknowledge the receipt.
Okay.
So you can make it a quotation, I think, I don't know.
Yeah, well, the thing that I like that David said too, and that you just brought up, Vicky, is putting the deadlines.
Yeah, put a deadline, yes.
And it's like David said, they can wait until the day of assessment, and we don't wanna do that, so like, we must have it by this date.
Exactly. Put the feedback on them.
yeah,
That's
It's
it.
like, level my mind, this is like a daily thing, I
Oh,
feel.
I'm sure it
It's
is.
nuts, I'm like,
But don't fall into that trap just because
Oh,
everybody else is doing it, you know, that kind of stuff. But I think, I love the idea of putting a defined date to it. That puts the heat back on them that you must fulfill all of these
Our
obligations.
offers void.
Our offers void, we're moving on.
And don't give deposit money until you get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
contracts have a beginning date and an ending date. And since we're altering it by putting contingency in the last page,
Yeah.
you gotta give it a date.
So how does it work with the agreement of sale being enforceable in Pennsylvania if the seller property disclosure is legally required from every,
They,
like, we can still.
the buyer then accepted it by not insisting on it.
Yeah.
They're willing to accept it how it is,
Yeah.
but they don't know enough to know this. So it's like watching an infomercial at 2 a.m. I mean, it's so real estate, put a sign on the wall, there you go.
I really need to go on the road with you. Yes, God, it would be fun.
Too many years doing this.
It's like, there's no substitution for experience. So the agent prepared a listing which.
Ahí, fui donde está el doctor para más fe, only give me medicine.
Put yourself on
I
mute.
feel good.
Tu nariz.
Yeah, está como fría.
Yeah.
Y no,
There you go. I found
Good
one.
story.
Oh, there you go.
What was Jared's question?
So I have a question here.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jared's in the room.
Just kind of looking at this here, I may have this, and I'm not sure. Let's say you have a seller, like you mentioned, who has never stepped foot into a property there across the country, and they have a pre-listing inspection. Would they be able to turn in a pre-listing inspection in place of disclosure?
No,
And
But it's nice.
I don't think so. It's not. But I understand even if they're out of the country, they need to either come themselves or, I've known people, they hired a local attorney to serve as their agent, their official legal agent, to act on their behalf. And so now the onus is on that attorney or whoever they've got to kind of go through and that kind of stuff. But again, you'll hear I'm so busy. I hadn't talked to my mom in 20 years. I haven't been in there, blah 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 blah. That's your problem. That's your problem.
also,
Yeah.
the first page has questions that are in public records. Like, who is the owner of the property? When was it last occupied? Like, if you don't even take the time to answer these questions that anyone could go online and find out, then that's a little laziness.
Right.
And there's also unknown. There's a checkbox that you can literally check off, I don't know. So if you don't know, you don't know. We're not asking you to lie. We're just saying to say yes, no, unknown, right? Yeah.
So the listing agent prepared a listing, and the listing said in the listing the property had been built in 2013. Why are you shaking your head in the back there, Lucia?
Because it wasn't going to.
Okay, that's right. So why did they list it as built in 2013? Right.
Yeah.
So also having all new plumbing, electrical, and HVAC. All new. It's not all new. The ductwork, right? The ductwork is still the same. The piping is still the same. They put in other sort of stuff, but it's not all new. And advertising is brand new and over 40 G's of concrete, move-in ready. All of this was in the listing. So is this accurate? Yes.
I have a question, it's kind of jumping ahead, but assuming these people got inspections, isn't the buyer releasing themselves in all of the release statements in the agreement of sale?
Hold on.
About this agent didn't go over that.
But this is, so you entice them. This is what you put in the listing. You entice them now because you think it's a house that was built in 2013. It's got all these new stuff in it and everything else. You're enticing them. So the question is this misrepresentation? And misrepresentation is when a real estate broker misstates some material feature of the property. Did that listing agent, I'm sorry, selling, yeah. Did they misrepresent something? They misrepresented a lot. So they were enticed and now they're coming in and then we'll see what happens a little bit later on. So it is often lumped in with failure to disclose when a real estate agent fails to address and reveal a material feature of the property. And a material feature is entirety, right?
And with that said, 2 ownerships back from Keller Williams, when I first got here in 15, litigation was to have an agent represented this was a total new construction. It was not. The basement was the original, built in 1900. That KW lost that lawsuit.
Yeah. So even little thing, even the pictures you put on your website, can cause you problems. We've seen those, haven't we, Vicky? Rebecca. We've seen those too, because it's like houses in this development look like this. And then you go there, and all the pictures you see on the website have all round columns on the porch, and then you get to the development, they're all square. So you're misrepresented. And people are saying, well, what's a material feature? A material feature is something that could influence a buyer or seller to buy or sell at a certain price or to walk away from it. So you have to kind of put yourself in the shoes of your client and decide, is this something that's really going to influence their decision to move forward or to move forward at a particular price? Yes, sir.
So with the photographs, can you put a disclaimer in there that it's a model unit or similar to the actual?
You would say not the actual homes in this development, you know, da 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 da. That's what it would be very clear about. So they know it is not hidden. It is very clear that this is a representation of a house, not a representation of the homes being built in this particular development.
Or
Like a stock photo.
Yeah, stock photo. You just make it very clear that it's a stock photo, you know, just showing a house, type of stuff. But again, you know, we've seen these claims and in fact, so back to this other house. So we have an out-of-state buyer who purchased the property sight unseen based on the information in the photos, sight unseen. When they moved in, they noticed significant cracks appearing in the walls and floors. They hired a structural engineer and that's when they learned about the 2,000 square foot addition being built all the way around it. And that the original foundation was continuing to settle in the original part of the house. So again, they relied upon the misrepresentations that the seller had put into the description. They just say, okay, fine, we'll buy it as we love it. We saw the pictures, we hear the descriptions, we want it. And then when they move in, they found out a lot of the things that they were saying in the description was not true. They had misrepresented the actual facts. Yes.
In the state of Pennsylvania, in the agreement of sale, during COVID, I had a interesting conversation with an agent been in the market a very long time in the burbs. And there was a discrepancy, and so as the broker, I was chit-chatting. And I said, ma'am, did you strike line such and such in the agreement of sale? And she said, what? I said, it quotes that the buyer has previewed the property. If your buyer had never gone through this property and is purchasing it sight unseen, you may want to consider striking that.
Right.
And there was this long pause, and she said, all the years, I didn't know that statement was in there. You've got to know what you're working with. You have to know your material.
Mm-hmm. And you have to adjust for the situation. Just because you may have standard agreements that you have to use them, you have to, with your attorney, make the appropriate modifications to that agreement because it is a contractual document. And then, you know, if they had never seen the property, then it needs to be clear. They had never seen the property, type of thing. Yes, Sean.
So Vicky, in the brokerage here, everyone should be using the same standard agreement of sale, and if they do have to modify that, is there a process or that they go to you to?
In a perfect world, that would be lovely. The word rogue is a word that I hear on a regular basis from attorneys because they'll say to me, oh, so your agent went rogue?
Yes. Yes.
Yet I never shut my phone off. I encourage. Last Tuesday, I had 58 phone calls. And that's okay. That's my job. But tell me, let me look, let me make a suggestion. Let me say, oh, God, that was clever. I'm glad you called me. That was a great idea. Or is it, oh, honey, please don't do that. Let's review and talk about this, right? So I am not an attorney. I don't play one. I didn't sleep at Howard Johnson. I didn't do any of that. All right, but I want the sources to go somewhere and say, let's review this.
But the point is, and you're right, we do see it a lot. I mean, and you know, and it happens with all professionals. I mean, it happens with law firms and every kind of stuff. You are part of a group here. You're not out there by yourself.
No.
So don't ever think, you know, you got to be rogue or that lone cowboy out in the west kind of deal.
No.
Talk to people, talk to your peers, seek advice, seek help, whatever. But, you know, lawyers do it, everybody does it. And that's when bad things start to happen.
Well, especially here, and I'm gonna help Frank out because he's real big about this. We literally have a separate broker hotline. And yeah, and so then there's more than Vicky, like Vicky has backup now. So when you have questions like that, your excuse can't be, well, like, I was afraid I wouldn't get a response, or I didn't have time. Like, we're not doing brain surgery, so we all have time. We all have a couple minutes. And there is a separate broker hotline that's separate from our support tickets and all that. So when you do have a transactional, like, it might mess up my money, you have help. So Vicky's already busy with one of the 1,100 or however many we have now. You have extra support. There's other eyes. There's another broker here too. You know what I mean? So I like, don't do it. Like, don't.
So do they actually use the broker?
No, which is why I'm saying this, because I know Frank asked about it.
I mean, so people don't really
They're not utilizing, there's so many tools and resources
Okay.
that we have here, especially at Keller, like the leadership here has literally busted their asses to provide them, so
Okay.
not using them is on the fault of the agency, but you have everything you need to be successful, not to get sued, not to get jammed up, so you just have to literally
No.
use it.
I just was kind of curious because, I don't think I've ever been to a real estate firm where they had something. So I'm just kind of curious, but that's still good because sometimes you get all the other tools, but sometimes you just want to talk to somebody.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they have all the
yeah.
options, you can talk to them, it's literally here, or you have a pro coach, there's me, there's Bill Kelly, there's a girl in Tiffany, so there's 3 extra like buffers so that you can like go over your chain of command to help you out with stuff. If
And
you don't
everybody
know,
knows about this.
everyone, they definitely know now.
So, not surprising, the
Yeah.
buyer filed a lawsuit asserting both affirmative misrepresentation and fraudulent. You deliberately do something on the non-disclosure claims, and the fraudulent is a real problem because that's something that falls out of the scope of your coverage. You cover you for your negligence, but if you deliberately, if the allegation is you committed fraud, something truly, kind of hide things and so forth, so on purpose, that creates a coverage problem. So they mediated twice, all these other sort of things. It really came down to basically what they said in the description. So, had the agent walked downstairs, you would have seen a number of different things that probably would have been disclosed and so forth and so on. So again, all of you all pretty much said, yes, I would walk down, even if I felt a little uncomfortable or whatever, then I would find some other sort of deals. But I think the expectation of your profession is you will walk around the property and view things and so forth and so on. And if this is newly renovated, I can't think of a reason why this real estate agent would not walk out. A house that had been vacant, for 15 years and was built back in 1722, maybe a little different. But again, you maybe take some other steps and maybe figure out what's going on down there. So what I have here. So the case settled prior to trial for most of the buyer settlement demand, and when they don't give you the numbers, usually it means it's really, really bad. So I get the claims information from the claims team because they have to scrub it of all identifying markers, and they make a judgment call about, okay, we don't want to let people know how much was paid of it. So when I don't see numbers, usually that's like, okay, that was an ugly, ugly, ugly loss. So yes, miss.
So for me personally, when I'm doing business and the seller's property disclosure is either in bright or it's sent to me, I actually read it every line, novel concept. And if something is not answered, I do not want my buyer to sign this as an acknowledgement of receipt when it's not complete. So it goes back for me, in paragraph on page 14, the last one, that the seller's property disclosure must be completed in its entirety.
Yep. Simple.
We should not be having our buyers sign these. Stop it.
No. I agree. And again, your buyers rely upon you to make sure all the I's are dotted and T's across before it even gets to that point. So again, understand what your agreement says. You've got the obligations of all the various parties, and make sure all the parties are carrying out their obligations, and then you can go to your buyer and they can make an informed decision and so forth. So, and it works with the seller too. It works both ways. It works both ways. So, but the vast majority of claims we see in our program, is really related to or identified as misrepresentation or failure to disclose.
I believe that.
Yeah, and a lot of them really, when I see them, it seems like an innocent little thing. The agent probably was thinking, this is not a big deal, I don't whatever kind of stuff. It wasn't a deliberate sort of stuff. I don't want to show this because I'll lose this deal. I don't get that deal. It's little things where they just didn't take that extra step or had that conversation or ask questions and that sort of stuff. And it just kind of fell into the crack. So important things to remember. So, when you're dealing with a flipped house, make sure you update, what remains original and that sort of stuff. Utilize information. Don't utilize information from prior listing. Do your own investigation. And then avoid sweeping language, marketing language, that kind of thing. You don't want to do that. I know you want to entice somebody, but avoid that sweeping language. And again, get the information from the person who did the flipping. Tell me what you did. Give me that form or that letter or whatever. Don't just verbally tell me. Put it in writing on your letterhead. Go into detail what you have done to this house, what's original, what's new, and so forth and so on. And then that can be shared with the potential buyer regarding and help them make that informed decision kind of stuff. So this one is going to make some people very uncomfortable.
Ooh, let's get into it.
And the reason, and this is not a traveler's fund. I found out about this one night I was watching Nat Geo and I heard about this situation. And so I did some investigation and I'm like, I can't believe this actually happened.
It looks like a Florida thing. Was that a Florida house?
No, it was in Maryland.
Maryland.
So maybe they could be one in Florida too, but this one, and it's one thing that this agent did that I still scratch my head about. But anyway, this couple spent $400,000 on a new home. 4 months later, they found a 3-foot snake coming out of the house between the brick and the salt pit. It's a snake, things happen kind of deal. On April 11th, the husband found a 7-foot snake in the basement. So, I can see the friends already. Kind of stuff. Pest control company was called to remove the snake and apply deterrent to expel the other snakes. An hour later, the husband found and killed a 4-foot snake coming out of the basement woodwork. A few days later, the parents heard slithering in the basement bedroom ceiling above where their baby slept. I told you, every time I do this, when people start cringing, kind of deal. So the couple said they asked for the pest inspection report before purchasing the home, but nothing was disclosed. The couple spent roughly $61,000 to rid the home of snakes, and you have to watch the YouTube. They basically gutted the house. They already spent $400,000. They literally gutted the house.
Snakes?
No. Watch the YouTube video. Watch the YouTube video. So it's a snake of pest. Well, it depends. A snake may be a pest, may not be a pest.
Was it later?
Hold on. Samuel Jackson. So the family actually moves out and files a lawsuit saying the real estate agent withheld knowledge about the infestation of the snakes. The law school was filed against the seller as well, not only the agent, but the seller who lived next door and was the real estate agent's mother. There we go. Is this?
Sorry.
First of all,
You lost that one.
do you feel like you have an obligation to disclose your relationship?
Okay. If you don't learn anything in real estate school, we learned that for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, the hired expert said if snakes were inactive during the cold weather months, that's when the inspection was done. That's why they didn't see any evidence of snakes. It was, are you okay? You ran out real quick.
I waited a little bit too long.
Okay, there you go. And he said, high temperature species, 1985. So you have to, this is particular, you have to watch the YouTube video. I'm not looking, this is like a scene from Indiana Jones when he fell into the temple. No. Yes, I'm not joking. That's how many, this had become because basically they left a scent or whatever that attract all the other snakes of the same breed, and that's where they just like nested for the winter. Kind of stuff and hibernated. And I was watching something recently. They found this nest of like rattlesnakes out in Arizona, and they've got cameras of it as the snakes are like warming up and they're coming out of the den and so forth and so on. So, but they said even if you demolish the whole house, there was no guarantee that would resolve the issue. Likely the house needed to be empty for 15 years. They paid $400,000 plus $61K. And now the extra is basically telling them, you have to move away. You have to move away. And again, go watch it on YouTube. Just watch it on
And they
YouTube.
clearly can't resell the house.
Well, hold on.
But the mortgage will be.
So before purchasing the house, the couple had heard rumors from neighbors that there was a problem with snake. The real estate agent assured them that they were just rumors and the pest control company had performed a snake away treatment.
No.
Assured.
Assured.
Yeah.
What's the key word there? Assured. Why is that a problem?
It's sort of like, I guarantee.
There it is, and that's sort of like, it is. I guarantee that this is nothing but rumors. And that the pest company had done a snake away. I don't know if they actually did or not, but that's what they told. But apparently, if they did, it didn't really work. So, and again, the reason they didn't observe any activity was because it was during the winter and it was during hibernation, and so there was little activity. So the lawsuit alleged that the real estate agent refused to keep a lockbox on the premises and would only personally open the house to check for snake activity before anyone entered the premises. So as professionals, why do you have a lockbox there? What's the reason?
Convenience.
Convenience. So do you need to be there or, kind of stuff? But is that kind of the general practice of your profession, to have a lockbox out there so various people can come? So have they gone outside the standards of the profession, this agent?
It could be assumed so.
Yeah.
There are sellers who mandate that their agent be there, but not likely on a vacant.
Right. But given all the other circumstances we'll see, this does not look good at all. Does not look good at all. So that's the snake breed that was in there. So
Rat snake, great.
it's a rat snake, yes. So
Yeah, but that's the good news, there's no rodents.
They eat them.
So,
I can assure you, there's no rats in the house.
so they settled for undisclosed amount. We'll get to that. But the newspaper down in Maryland said that someone had bought it, did $100,000 of renovation, and listed it under a new contract for sale. So the new owners, the selling company, said disclosed that there was a snake issue. So this is after the family had moved out, someone went in and renovated, did all this other sort of stuff, and through a written document to the homes said there was no snake issue, showing them exactly how they had secured the home, and said that the snake problem was really a result of a mouse problem, and that had been resolved.
Yeah, I'm just like the willies there.
Is this okay?
No.
No, because what did the experts say?
They would take the
So basically, when you read the whole thing, basically, yes, these snakes, the rat snakes, leave some sort of scent to tell everybody else, come here, it's nice and warm during the wintertime, come here. Kind of stuff. So it has been here. But apparently there really was not a mouse problem. They were just there to sleep through the winter. So this is going to cause a problem for, the new selling agent, for anybody else who buys it after this. So the lawsuit, actually, they requested $2 million in damage. It was later amended to a additional 1.5 based on respiratory issues that they were having from the feces that the snakes were leaving in the walls and so forth and so on. So what do you think happened? Case goes to trial, real estate agent prevails for lack of firsthand knowledge. Case is settled out of court. Indiana Jones purchased it, or homeowner prevails on trial based on reasonable expectation that the real estate agent should have known about the business. A, B, C, or D.
B,
Why D?
because of all that money.
Yeah. Yes, B is what happens. Because I don't think this real estate agent had a leg to stand on.
Oh, no.
And could you imagine, especially if I'm the lawyer representing that family, I want to go to trial.
Yes, you could go ham. You could embarrass the agent, the brokerage, real estate agent.
All that sort of thing. Why do I want to go to trial?
Get more money.
Because you want to pop a snake out of that can.
That's right. I want, just as this lady here, and she's clenching her teeth. She's sitting in the jury box, and you've got a young family that spent $400,000 plus another 61 trying to resolve the issue, and they got children. And so just as this young lady here is just going to, she's like, slam them, give them $5 million, the kind of stuff, because this This is outrageous behavior on behalf of that real estate agent, above and beyond.
Well, and 1.5, when you consider all their costs in and having to pay attorney fees and stuff like that, is really not that much. They're not walking away with a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's $500,000 already just in their upfront cost of the house and their pest control.
Right, and I'm sure this family, like, they got a lot of money, they probably like, I just want a home for my kids to grow up in and all this other sort of stuff.
They got
But you go to YouTube and, you go to, I have a duplicate slide in here. Yes, I do for some reason. If you go to YouTube and Google or go to YouTube and just say Snake House in Maryland, you will see what they did, and you will see the number of snakes that they had to get out of this place. It is unreal, kind of stuff. But they literally, in an attempt to mitigate all of this, they gutted the house, down to step walls, and it still didn't work. So, you know, because that scent was there, it was embedded in everything, and so it's going to likely be a home for snakes coming, you know, for years and years and years. So,
So I can tell you, I had a client prior that was buying a $1.8 million house in Wall, New Jersey, right? So not a huge house, but Wall, New Jersey. And seller's disclosure clean. And then we go to run a homeowner quote on it. It says it has $700,000 in fire damage, smoke damage. Now, all beautifully redone. The problem is this kid has asthma, right? That smoke stuff can be remediated only to a certain point, just like snake feces or whatever is in a wall and respiratory. You don't know, which is why it has to be disclosed. He didn't buy that house and they ended up pulling out of the contract because of that smoke damage. He couldn't tell there was damage anywhere. But how do you not know he had a $700,000 claim, right? Like that's another story.
right.
But it happens all the time.
What's that?
That's an actual question.
Yeah, and so many people put no. I mean, we have an agent here that just happened that a client was selling a house, and the year was representing them, and I said, oh, I pulled the seller's disclosure. I go, you know, they had a fire. She goes, no, they didn't tell me that. I asked them. I said, they had a $35,000 fire in their kitchen and I paid for it. And so she ended up dropping the client because it was obviously a conflict of interest because they wouldn't put it on the disclosure. They were afraid they couldn't sell it.
Well, and that's usually kind of the driving factor, especially if the house has been listed for a very long time. The temptation at that point is
That's why we have Carfax now, because people would sell cars that have been, you know, wrecked and damaged back up, yeah.
Yeah, that's our blue report.
Yeah.
This house, how long was it vacant for? This thing house.
I don't think it was, it wasn't really vacant. When they sold it, it had been rented. It was a rental because the mother lived next door and she had been renting it out kind of stuff, kind of deal. And so that, if I'm understanding the story correctly. So she was right next door, been renting it out. So it wasn't vacant. So people are renting it. Maybe that's why they decided I don't rent it anymore. Because more and more snakes, every year I've been here, there's been more and more snakes coming in. Yeah, sure it was, too, kind of stuff. But even the seller, you know, the seller should have known something, the real estate agent, the daughter should have known something, and all this other. So, you know, and they say rumors, but don't discount rumors. You know, may want to do a little bit more investigation, kind of. So, but to me, the key more than anything else in the world is that she would not show the house unless she was there prior to. That to me was really, I can get away with, they did an inspection, but it was winter time, so we didn't see any evidence. I could probably argue that, you know, as a lawyer, like, we did everything reasonable, as you wanted to buy this house in December, snakes sleep during December, and there was nothing visible because they're all in the walls, you know, that kind of stuff. But I think the behavior of not having a lockbox to people coming and go, with kind of stuff was going to hurt her in the relationship with her mother who lived right next to her.
Yeah.
A reasonable person said, you should have known something was fishy going. Maybe not to that extent, but you should have known that your behavior exhibited you knew something. So some do's and don'ts. First of all, don't act outside of your areas of expertise. Ask for help. And this is an easy one folks fall into. Very easy. You're showing a house or whatever kind of stuff, and they ask the buyers, like, I wonder, can I put a deck on that kid? You don't know. Does the zoning allow that? I mean, a whole bunch of different things. And it's like, well, you know, talk to some contractors, you know, check with, I mean, whatever. Defer to the people who are really, especially legal matters. Can I modify this contract like this? Talk to your legal advisor that is the proper modification. And don't represent difficult clients Yeah, I know, he's got a lot of money, she's got a lot of money, she's, John Diddy is now indicted for a bunch of different stuff, and all this kind of deal.
He's gonna need to sell all his.
I know exactly. He's gonna, every kind of stuff. But high demand. So and that's why I'm a big proponent of the client intake process. Have a form, ask your client some very basic questions, and that gives you a good indication. Not only are they going to be difficult and high maintenance, and when I say difficult and high maintenance, it doesn't mean that they're combative and nasty and that kind of stuff. It may be they just don't know. And are you the right person to have that kind of patience to walk through and then calling you 5 times a day or 10 times a day? So just recognize that not all clients are equal, and a difficult client, when your expectations are not met, that's when lawsuits happen. So you just have to take that into account. So do not direct clients to a particular vendor. If you have people always asking, what's the minimum? I don't know what the minimum is. Yeah, I would think at least 3. I don't think 2. I think 3, because 2 is like one or the other. Give them 3, but also said, but you can find your own. Make sure that they know that they have options. Don't arrange for repairs. Don't become a property manager. And this is the big one, and I'll ask Rebecca to respond to this, and Sean, is that because you have agents out there who quote unquote are rogue, if you get a subpoena, you need to make sure Sean knows and Becky knows. Because basically that is the law, or the court's telling you, you need to show up and give testimony under oath. And what lawyers tell me all the time, the problems with folks giving testimony under oath, they say more than they need to say. Were you at the property that day? Yes. Did you see that 5-foot crack? No, basically not. Maybe back. Were you at the property that day? Yes, I was. And I did notice that 5-foot crack. You're saying more than you need to say. Basically, you just need to answer the question that was asked. And so, subpoena response?
No deductible, doesn't affect your rating at all. Let's take advantage of it, that's what's there for.
Yeah. It gives you access to an attorney to coach you on what to expect. And it's not just giving testimony, it's your documents. All of a sudden, this person that you represented, this buyer, like 5 years ago, said, I want all your documents related to that transaction, give them all to me. Well, unless it's a court order subpoena, you're not compelled to. Be nice to. But do you really need to give them everything? Because there may be something in that documentation that could really come back to haunt you. So again, that's why whenever you receive any of this kind of stuff, you should be talking to Sean and to Rebecca before you just go off saying everything, to the person requesting it. Yes.
I just want to make sure it's very clear, because I literally just caught on, it took me a minute to come full circle. When it says respond to subpoena without representation, you're saying that our insurance company here will initially represent us to do the coaching with
Yeah.
this.
And coaching.
I just want to make sure everybody online heard that too.
Yes.
You don't have to go hire your own attorney
No.
initially. You need to. I want to make sure that they knew that. Okay.
So in the policy with travelers, and Rebecca can explain a little more, there are very specific things that we switch to travelers for. One is certain things to reduce your deductible as an agent and as a brokerage by following 3 simple tasks. We can talk about that later. But one of the key things is there's pre-claims assistance. But it's not for everyone here to just call. Your role as an agent is to call Vicky.
Yeah.
Vicky then consults with me, and we consult with the leadership at KW and Power how we want to resolve it, whether it's through traveling. If we get a lawsuit for $10,000 and they want to go away, and we have a $25,000 deductible, right? Travelers doesn't need to be involved in that. We just cover it and make sure that the legal thing is taken care of. That happens sometimes where we get a lawsuit and it's well below the deductible. We just want to take care of it to make it go away. Sometimes that has to happen, right? But you are not to make those decisions. It's more you have to consult with Vicky. Vicky consults with the leadership team and David and his team. And then we work together with myself, and then I'll have conversations with Rebecca or the pre-claims hotline on behalf of that with Vicky. And if you need to be brought in for that deposition or for statements, then we do that. But again, the less you say, the better in a claim situation, because we're playing defense. We're not playing offense.
Right.
Right? So we have to play as much defense as possible, block and tackle.
So the only caveat I would say to that is to be very careful, because whatever you may resolve on your own, which a lot of firms do, like that kind of stuff, because it's well within your deductible, make sure that that is not something that's going to escalate. You've done that, and now all of a sudden, 6 months later, they come back with something else kind of stuff, because then it could be a coverage issue. They didn't give us proper notice, and you've already taken steps to kind of resolve it. So is that,
Yeah,
yeah,
and we wanna scrub those documents too.
Yeah.
Only send what there's, so we wanna look at those documents, only give what they're required. We're gonna help you with any testimony that you give, and we'll represent you there as well. So like I said, it's all included in the policy note.
So again, I mean, attorneys have told me over and over and over, what the problem is when people get on an oath, because you're professional, you already feel like you're getting blamed for something. So you tend to want to try to just say a lot to kind of get the focus off of you. And then in doing that, then that's when you open up the doors of the potential, like, oh, you really did do something wrong. Now they're really coming after you. Because sometimes this situation may be a dispute between two other people, not involving you at all. And they're asking for your information to support their allegations against that other party. And then when they get some information, that's when they can go, oh my, okay, maybe you're partly responsible as well. So that's the situation we want to avoid. So things you want to do, know your insurance, your local brokerage and disclosure rules, and use standard forms. Make sure you have the proper language in your forms for your particular situation, and consult with a lawyer if you need to make modifications. And communicate, return phone calls. Even if it's just acknowledge, hey, I got your message, da 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 da. I don't have time right now, but when I get back or tomorrow morning, we'll set up a time to call. Because usually when people feel like they're being ignored, their issue is their number one issue. It may not be your number one issue, but it's their number one issue. And if they feel like they've been ignored or don't care about their issue, then that's when they usually will bring a claim against you. So I keep pointing to the wrong one. Think before you text. Think before you text. Even before you email. Document your communication and be uniform in how you treat your clients. All of them have the same sort of process that you use for all your clients. You don't want that discriminatory claim. You treat X differently from Y, based on their physical abilities and so forth and so on, or whatever kind of stuff. So just make sure you treat everybody equally, and then maintain a complete transaction file. Clarified, qualified statements, and attribute source of information. Here's what that contractor who flipped this house. This is what they gave. Kind of stuff. It may seem, like not a big deal, but it is a big deal, including images on the website. Do you have a proper license? We even had one recently where they were using music, but they didn't have the license to use that music. So you want to make sure you have the proper licenses for your attributable. So what happened with our first one that we discussed? So the lack of email evidence raised a question. Parties wind up settling, taking into consideration the difference in amount of the asking price and selling price. So we have a lot of stuff on our website that are available to you as insurers, and individual agents can actually access the site. The handout that I sent has information on how to opt in for email. So we do newsletters twice a year that talk about a lot of different things. But we also have these podcasts, and the podcasts are like 15 minutes kind of stuff. People say they like to listen to when they have a coffee in the morning kind of deal. But it covers a lot of different topics, kind of so you can listen to it very quickly, kind of stuff. But everything is housed on our risk management website. But if you opt in for the email, you get the newsletter twice a year. You get an announcement where we do webinars. You get all the podcasts that we send out. But eventually, everything is housed. So you don't need to take a picture. Tori has a handout that has all of this information in there that is available to you. So with that, I have kind of gone through all my stuff. Anybody else have any questions about anything at all? Sorry about the emails. What's that? But no, literally Tori has handout, has all the slides, has a bunch of other information into it as well, and just a PDF. And so actually it's clickable, certain things, but yeah, it has like all of the stuff that's available. It has instructions on how to access the website and instructions on how to opt in. It's a big sort of deal in our office of like, they want to do like every website does automatically making, I'm like, no, people need to choose to because I can constantly have to unsubscribe things all the time. So it's there for you if you want to, but yes, the newsletter goes out twice a year. Podcast we do either 4 to 6 depending on the year kind of stuff. They're literally like 15 minutes. And we'll do 1 to 2 webinars a year. And so all of that goes via email. But eventually everything is put on the website. So recordings and all that other stuff, plus claim studies, plus advisory bulletins on various topics and things like that. One of Rebecca's favorite stuff, dealing with vacant lots and it's burial ground or something like that. Which in an urban area you probably don't have to deal with that, but in rural areas. This is really happy. I forgot about that. Yeah, I forgot about that stuff anyway. So, but any other questions? I really appreciate. We need to go on the road together. This would be a blast.
So you had a slide. You grazed over this one thing, but it's something that comes up for me a lot with my agents, and it was where it said having your client intake or your policies and procedures written down and it being the same. So this is something that pops up a lot too. In the state, I came from Delaware first, doing real estate in Delaware and Maryland, and it wasn't an industry standard in Delaware, especially when I first got started, to charge like a transaction or a broker's fee in addition to the percentage, where when I came up here to Pennsylvania, it is a standard up here where most clients are going to be used to getting charged like this fee. And I've seen the fees be anywhere from $275 all the way up to $995, like whatever this transaction fee is, right? So I do coach my agents to put their intake process and have their business, everything written down, not just for this liability standpoint, so that you can, because we have fair housing, like I said, if you don't learn anything in real estate school, that you need to disclose things, you learn about fair housing, you learn when all the historical things happen in real estate. They unfortunately don't teach you how to write a contract. However, they do teach all these other things. So I'm like, write that down. But I get this question a lot because agents want to have a different flat transactional fee for certain price points or certain types of clients. And I'm like, that's actually the biggest no-no. I need you to
certain type of client?
Yeah, like if they're in a price, but I know, this happens every day, and I'm like, just because they're in a higher price point doesn't mean you can charge them a higher fee. Like, what is your fee that you're comfortable with? And that needs to be a standard, and it does need to be in writing, because should someone come back and say, I bought a house with Joe Schmo here at KW Empower, and you charged me a $495 transaction fee, but then you charged my sister $299. Like, why did I get charged more? And I keep telling them that this is so important for you, and you need to have it written down. Like, you have to have it written down for in case something like this happens. Now, if you get a client, just like we have our buyer agency contract, where we have to say how much we want to get paid, you also need to be consistent. So what I tell people is put the most on there. Like if our industry standard is for half of the transaction we're getting 3%, then put that, because you can always negotiate down.
Yes.
And then nobody's gonna get upset, right? But if you are trying to negotiate up, like that's crazy. And your flat fee is also on that buyer agency contract. So you have to be consistent. So if you have a hard time like just verbalizing your wealth and like what your value propositions to your clients, then maybe you got to start on the low end. You know what I mean? Until you get comfortable, because you cannot jump up and down. And like when I know Vicki has to review, I'm reviewing all of my new agents' documents, send it out. And the biggest argument I have is, well, you charge $500 on your last buyer agency agreement. One, I think there's a bad, I remember, but two, they're like, well, you can't tell me how to run my business. I'm like, actually, the brokerage is hoping I'm doing this right now, right? And Vicki is too, but I'm also, so we don't get sued. Like you have to be consistent. Like that uniform procedures is something that can get you out of so much trouble. Something this little, where you took the time to write it down and you were consistent, you get out of so much trouble.
That's an excellent point, because you don't want, it could be interesting and brilliant. I know Joe Schmo's got a lot of money, so I'm going to charge him more. But then his sister kind of said, but you're treating them differently. And that does not look good. Does not look good. So your whole thing about, yeah, attorneys call it like rogue agents, and I get that. But, everybody needs to remember we're part of a bigger family, and again, youngest of nine kind of deal, we all went out in that world, we all do different things and so forth and so forth. When we came home for holidays, mom and daddy were in charge. And like, this is where you're gonna sit this year, and this is where you're gonna sit this year, and we did what we were told, type of stuff. So you just need to remember, but that's not a bad thing, because as part of the family, you get more resources and all this other sort of stuff that is, there for their benefit. So that's a great point to stress with, especially your newer agents, is just to be consistent, with what you all have already established as the procedures for this particular, firm.
So just wanna, because you talk about consistency and forms and everything, Rebecca, can you just touch on what's in the E&O policy that allows them the three standard things that they have to do for them to have a deductible waiver for the first, whatever it is? There's three things that are key, that are just standard practice that we don't think about.
Okay, so we'll waive up to $5,000 of the deductible if you have a property disclosure form in your file that's complete by the seller and provided to the buyer of the property prior to the closing. And you have to also have in the file a local board approved sales contract. Completed prior to the closing or waived in writing by the buyer prior to the closing. And it's not a dual agency contract, so you can't be the listing agent.
Can you say that one?
Dual agent within that same brokerage, or it can't be the same individual agent?
Brokerage.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Well, that's extra.
That's a different, because transactional or,
Yeah.
Especially for a firm of your size, it's probably a lot of them. But it's the moral hazard that they're trying to avoid. Travis is spending a lot of money, and they're just trying to avoid that moral hazard of like, hey, we're part of the same family.
Just wait, because there's one more piece of that.
Oh,
And if you have a seller's protection plan in place, then those would be waived.
What is that?
that's a seller's protection plan.
That is, kind of like a small insurance policy that a seller can purchase if they were to get sued for a non-disclosure.
Do we go through Sean, do you think?
I don't know.
Our home warranty company offers that actually part of their, home warranty.
Oh, the American stuff.
You can buy a seller's side home warranty at the time of listing, which is given to the buyers. That includes the seller's side protection of a couple of $1,000 for the differences.
But wait, why would they need that if they're honest on their disclosure?
Honesty is a relative term. Yeah.
Like, yes, but if they can't prove, the buyer's agent or buyer can't prove that they didn't know something or something was not disclosed on the agreement, then there's no case. Then, but like, why? You know what I mean?
So insurance is to protect, against a lot of things, whether it's honest or true. We pay a lot of claims that don't exist or shouldn't have been paid, but you make them go away because it's cheaper to go into court. And in Philly, you get a jury trial and you lose, right? Someone wants to get rich. The people that sit on juries want to pay people because they want to sit the same thing. The other part of that is a home inspection, I believe is written into that, right? That they are required to have a home inspection or have it waived in writing. So that is a key component. Like in home inspection, does that now include sewer lines? Like, I don't know because obviously home inspection is relative to the inside when we do it, but now we're having lateral line scopes. I would recommend it separate. I understand it's separate, but you should recommend that they have that, and if they don't want it, they should sign off saying that they waived it, because the most common claim that we're seeing when people buy is the backup of their sewage within the first couple of months of them being in their house. So,
especially if it's a flip.
Yeah.
The contractors are pouring everything down the sewer line.
Yeah.
so those are key things, right? Consistency that we talked about with using the same contracts, not going rogue, as we say. Making sure that we're buying that third party thing through American Warranty, through is it Colette, right?
Yeah,
Offers it, Colette Staub from here, and then also making sure that we're dual agency or dual brokerage, that you following everything, dotting your I's and crossing your T's, because that's not going to occur. And with 25% of the transactions running through this brokerage, probably a lot of them are dual agents. dual agent brokerage stuff. But home inspection thing, consistency, don't change the language without Vicky's approval of any contract. Like it needs to be the standard contract that's been approved by PAR at this point, because that's the local agency that approves.
Sean,
Yes.
so how about like for co-op? Yeah. Because we don't use the same standard in co-op.
Question for, too technical for me.
She does mostly co-ops. I said co-op. So the building wrote their own agreement as now.
For the co-op, is it a local approved one?
It's the cooperations form, it's their standard form.
Okay, if it's a standard approved form,
What's approved by who?
Approved, yeah.
for this particular waiver to go through, it says that the state or local board approved sales contract. Would have to be that,
Yeah.
in this one,
No,
this is black and white.
Yeah,
that's why-
It has to be state or local board approved.
Aren't we gonna have a type of insurance for co-ops anyways? I just don't know about that.
Co-ops are conduit, so it's just, but it's totally different, but it talks to professional liability, warranty statements. Right, and if you haven't gone through a co-op, yes, Barbara, the headaches of.
All right.
All right, so we're gonna take advantage because I have all these smart people in the room at the same time. In our independent contractor agreement that all of our agents on this are required to sign to be part of the KW Power family, there is a brief section in there about how the office has E&O insurance and we pay into that. There's some language in there about you can get your own E&O insurance policy like separate as well. And I'm gonna be honest, like that's kind of a gray area for me. I do hold my own E&O insurance policy, but it's for a separate business outside of real estate.
Right.
So like I feel duly covered because I feel like the office has my back here and then my other company's covered. But is it a good idea? Is it redundant? What would happen if an agent needed to use their E&O? Would the office cover first, then theirs hits for, like, how does that look, like, how does that actually work? And
So
then how should-
if you're an agent, you have an agent agreement with this firm, and you're doing stuff, you're selling houses,
Yeah.
you know, listing houses, whatever, on behalf of, this policy is gonna cover that activity.
Okay,
But if you really are rogue, I mean,
Okay.
really
so
rogue.
you're doing stuff that they didn't sanction allowable in the first place, like, for
Right,
example.
but
property
you
management.
prevent them from doing that as part of the agent agreement. Did you say you can't do any kind of
I'm
transaction?
telling agents what they can't do.
What's that?
I'm telling
No,
agents.
but I mean, this is the agreement that they
Oh,
signed,
contract.
yeah, does the contract say?
Brokerage.
Well, again,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Welcome to
like,
school.
I'm talking about real life, how we figure it out, I don't know, but
But
that's-
so, I mean, the cost is gonna kick in for what your agents do on behalf of this road,
Gotcha.
period. But if they're out there truly rogue, they got a couple of different problems. One, if they're doing something totally rogue on that behalf of this brokerage here, kind of said, yeah, they have an exposure that maybe they do need to have a separate policy just for them and that activity. But does your agreement with them prevent them from representing anybody? That's, and I don't know, I mean.
Yeah, no, they're not supposed to, but what I'm saying, like, what we get as being part of the KW Power family is sufficient for whatever could probably.
What you're doing for, right, it,
Right, okay,
right, I mean, it covers, what does the language say? What does the language say, the who's the insured,
Yeah, it would cover the insured and
the name insured,
the independent contractor,
And-
business is the name.
okay.
right, that's the word I was looking for, so we have a name insured on the policy,
KW Power.
and then,
If they're not doing business.
I'm not
for
talking about that, I'm just making sure that what we
Yeah.
are doing, what all the new age, because it gets asked all the time, like, is it enough? Does the brokerage have enough, like, God forbid, like, especially if they're doing, like, they think that, oh, if I'm like doing luxury real estate, these are like $2 million homes or $3 million homes, am I gonna need more E&O? Is there like a difference in the,
well, they're gonna sue
yes,
this brokerage.
Right.
So you all have to determine what are your policy limits and what you need to cover all of what your various agents are doing.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, and if an attorney signs out, you have insurance through your brokerage, and that is with travelers.
yes, they're gonna
They're
go
gonna
after
come
that,
after you,
right,
not
yeah.
your other vehicle.
Yeah, because,
They have really good limits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so as long as they're doing everything under the KW Power umbrella, it's not necessary for them to go get a separate, okay.
because you're covered as an independent contractor, that's in the language of who is the insurer.
If it, Question, what if it's someone who is under the entire corporation, yet they're doing a transaction, maybe it's a wholesale transaction?
Well, that's about to go away anyway.
Okay, so they're doing a wholesale, and your question is?
Well, I'm just saying as far as the E&O, is that's because they're licensed, right, under Empower, and they're doing this wholesale thing.
So the question is, does the insurance company cover wholesale transactions?
No?
You want it in the name of KW and Power, is that what your contract says?
Where's the money go when it's set?
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I said, we're gonna ask for a copy of that contract.
So they don't have to, okay.
Yes, they're not.
If KW or Power.
And I think because there are some people, wholesaling, I don't like wholesaling, yet there are some people who absolutely for the money that they get from it. And with the state now requiring a license, you're gonna have more.
I think Sean's question is gonna be really key to that, it's like, where's the money going from that
If the
transaction?
money goes to KW Power and it gets distributed out, it would generally be a covered real estate thing, because for wholesale and real estate, whether the contract gets, it's part of the same insured operations. If the money goes directly into Jerry's pocket and never sees KW, then KW is hanging me out to dry when it's there, because it's not their responsibility to cover it.
So that's,
They're not receiving money for it, so they're not responsible to pay for it.
so they should have, in that case, they should have the role.
But
Cover that exit.
But you wanna make sure it's very specific in the wording of what is covered on the E&O, because then you get into things like travelers saying, oh, you're covered here, you're covered here. You don't want people fighting over, because it's their job to not pay claims that aren't their responsibility.
Right, okay, thank you.
Sorry. And it's their job to not wanna pay claims that aren't their responsibility, and when you have a pissing match, right, with the two insurance companies, nobody wins.